Hey folks, this is Chris Driscoll, owner and managing editor of Exact Rush Multimedia Publishing, and I'm doing some market research right now on the publishing industry, and I thought I'd jump on here and share a few thoughts, a few statistics, and a few questions about that. In 2021, the U.S. publishing industry generated about $30 billion, a 12% increase from 2020, and about half of that is from fiction sales, the other half from nonfiction. A huge chunk of that market rests in educational books, that is K through 12 directed books. That accounts for about 30% of the publishing industry's revenue in the United States. And another thing about publishing is whether it's paperback, hardback, whatever, essentially everything continues to grow in ways that people weren't forecasting. So book sales are not going anywhere. What else? The U.S. is the biggest educational market, followed by Europe. And digital textbooks are expected to reach nearly 30 billion by themselves by 2027. And the average American student, or the school system, school district that is purchasing them, the average spends about $1,200 on textbooks per year. So that's one big chunk of the U.S. publishing. But now let's look at academic publishing. So Exact Rush publishes stuff that runs the gamut. In fact, right now we have a moratorium on academic publishing, precisely for reasons connected to what I'm about to talk about. So academic publishing statistics. The top 5 academic publishers accounted for over 50% of the industry's revenue. So there aren't very many. There are a lot of imprints, but not very many owners. The number of journals published each year has increased nearly 30% over the last 10 years. In 2020, over half of all academic papers published had some form of open access. So that is a complicating factor in some ways that we'll talk about. Women account for over 30% of all academic authors. So that's not the majority, of course, but that's a big chunk. Here, the academic publishing industry generates around $19 billion annually globally. The U.S. piece of that is just under $9 billion, or at least it was in 2022. So here's where it gets interesting. So what is the typical royalty rate? How do those extremely large numbers shake out for authors? Here, I looked it up. For authors across the board, for publishing across the board, not academic, not educational, just all of it lumped together, paperback royalty rates run between 5 and 8% for the author. So for every book sold, the author's getting 5 to 8%. Hardcover, it goes up a little bit to about 15%, and ebooks, they get maybe a quarter. That's the average across all 3 of those spaces: fiction, creative nonfiction, education, and then academic. But here, get this. So the way we do it at Exact Rush is we leverage a Kindle direct to market platform. We leverage what self-publishers use. We are not self-publishers, but we use the direct to market or the print on demand formula, and we beef it up with all of the things that we can offer to make the books better. We make them as official as anything you'd get from a traditional publisher. But here's the difference in the royalty averages. So if you publish with Amazon Kindle Direct, you get up to 70% royalties for books between $3 and $10. These are mostly right here, these are ebook figures. But for Apple Books, you could get up to 70%. You get Google Play Books, you get up to 70%. If you're printing ebooks, you're getting up to 70%. But here's the thing, you can also earn significantly more from your paperback and hardback books as well, in the realm of between 35, 45, 55, even 60% in some cases. So here's some more figures. Let's compare a traditional author's earnings to a self-published author's earnings. The book retail price is the same on both sides, $15. an initial royalty rate for that author from a traditional publisher might be 10%. Whereas if they do it themselves, I'm not even pitching Exact Rush. We got that all worked out. Don't worry about that. But if you publish a book yourself, that initial royalty rate immediately goes to 60%. So let's do the math. The income per book for the traditional publishing route is about $1.79. And the income per book, or if you do it yourself, shoots up to $5.75. So suppose you sell 6,000 books. If you publish with a traditional publisher and you sell 6,000 books, you might make $10,000. Now, again, this is not for academic publishing. This is that the whole pie accounted for with averages. So most authors aren't making anywhere near that either. But 6,000 books is a great run for a book, and you make $10,000 across that time span. But if you were to have self-published that same book, you would have made $35,000. It's crazy. It's crazy. But here's the thing. The numbers get even more severe when you look only at academic publishing. These numbers do not reflect just how abysmal academic publishing numbers are. Typically, academics see very low returns for the work that we do. The books, to produce them, cost roughly the same amount, but the numbers sold are usually much smaller. The books we publish tend to have a smaller reader base, and because it's specialized, so that part makes sense. But because the margins are smaller, the presses are less likely to give a higher rate for academic authors, a higher royalty rate, because they think that the numbers are small across the board, so they give you the smallest royalty rate as well to help pad their numbers. But it gets even worse than that. In many parts of the world today, very reputable presses actually ask academic authors to come to the table with money. These are traditional legacy presses that don't want to risk academics writing books that don't sell, and because of that, they force the authors to come up with the money themselves. And what is so ironic about this, or not ironic so much as perilous, is that in an effort to get their credentials bolstered, they publish with these traditional legacy presses on the reputation of these presses, but don't get any sort of return on the actual work that they're doing. And in many cases, like I just said, they have to actually come to the table with money. Had they self-published, they'd be making money per copy. I'll leave this for another conversation, that traditional publishers these days essentially don't market our books anyway as academic books. There are some email lists that go out once a quarter, maybe even once a week, but those books move in the direction of where the most wealth is generated, and that's fine. That's part of how the game is played. But my point is that whether you are publishing with a traditional press or whether you're self-publishing, academics and authors in general really have to do the lion's share of the marketing for themselves anyway. It's more or less the same set of circumstances before you sign a contract that an author is facing. You're going to have to do the marketing. The book's going to need to be good, or it's not going to do well. Either way, and you're left with this decision: should I try and leverage the reputation of the press, or should I get paid? Right now, academics are not in a position to even be asking the question of should I self-publish, because there's not an infrastructure in place that would enable self-publishing alongside of maintaining your ability to bolster your credentials or your CV, to build your reputation. Exact Rush is trying to address that in a couple of ways. We are not publishing academic works right now until this infrastructure is built, but we're having conversations with interested parties, with all sorts of industry people inside of academia and outside of it, to try and design an infrastructure that would enable self-publishing by academics so that you could make whatever money you're going to make on your project. I'm also leaving out the fact that academics haven't done ourselves any favors in the way, the style, the tone that we write. Exact Rush does do a lot to try and help mitigate the effects of talking in jargon and stuff like that. But either way, we need an infrastructure that would allow scholars to publish whatever they want to publish and get paid for it. This would help solve contingent labor issues. It would do a lot to help bring the equity back to the scholar or even to the institution. But I will want to leave you with a couple of questions to consider. Here are the questions. Where is all of the equity of academic work going? That's question one. They're pulling what little bit of equity we have left as academics out from underneath us. Where is all of the equity going these days with respect to publishing? Another question. When will we find a way to allow academics to leverage direct-to-market publishing? That's what I was just talking about. So I want us to build an infrastructure that would allow, think of it like a Facebook of peer review. You get a stamp of approval in exchange for accessing the site, using the site, helping to grow the ecosystem of the site. And universities, hiring committees, all of interested parties, they don't have to trust that X or Y reputable traditional publisher has ensured that this meets the standard of our university. No, this infrastructure meets the standard of our university. And the last question, relatedly, kind of born from that, is who decided at some point that traditional publishing houses were owed such a big chunk of the equity of the work that we do on university campuses? I can complain about not getting paid enough, although there are the exceptions of academics in the news right now. They get paid quite handsomely. Most of us don't. Most of us are in privileged positions, but economically we're fighting for what we got. But my point is, why is there some sort of third-party distributor coming in and taking what is the work that we do on college campuses? We're in the position now. I don't think it's sinister that the way that the publishing industry works or happens, but I do think it has grown to be antiquated. And I think there are ways, if we work together and are thoughtful about how to do this, we can leverage direct-to-market publishing in a way that benefits not only the scholars to keep as much of the equity of our work as possible, but that would also perhaps even give universities a bigger taste of what it is that we're doing on their campuses. Yeah, there's the salaries that we make if we're fortunate enough to have a position on a campus somewhere. But what if there was a way that infrastructure was built into the economic fabric or business model, quite literally, of one or several universities, that we kind of push out the traditional publishing houses from conversations that they're constantly interested in what conversations are going on, and the fact that they're asking these questions speak to the fact that they're not the real arbiters of what needs to be happening with the discourses. This is not to poke a sleeping lion, but these numbers are significant. We're facing an equity crisis in higher education for lots of reasons, way bigger than the ones I'm talking about now. But there are solutions, and love them or hate them, Amazon and other places have offered examples of what this could look like. Now, most writers will never get rich from the work that they do, but all writers, all content creators of any sort these days need to be more conscientious about the worth of their work. And so that's what we're up to at Exact Rush. We're trying to empower authors and creatives to retain more of the equity of their work. It's a multifaceted approach. The business model is multifaceted. We're just getting started. The first 3 of our books have been published over the last 5 or 6 weeks. The next 3 or 4 should be out by the start of the summer. And we're hoping to keep it going from there. So if you're still here, thanks for listening, and thanks for listening to this soapbox talk. I am incredibly passionate about this issue, and I would love to have more talking partners. Hit me up. Thanks a lot.